Okay, I wanted to give you guys some tips and some things that you can buy to give yourself an advantage and help yourself a lot post surgery if you have a spinal fusion surgery like I had. So the first biggest thing that I'll tell you is make sure pre-surgery that you have your spot picked out where you want to be for the next week or so. Um, have it picked out, have it set up to where you'll be comfortable, have a bedside table or something where you can stack all of your drinks and medicines and things that you'll need frequently, so you don't have to keep getting up to get them because you're not going to want to get up the first few days. I had a bedside table that had all of my medicine. I had a stack of drinks, some snacks, um, a little bit of everything that I could possibly need to try to alleviate me from having to get up and get down a bunch of times. Because laying down and then getting yourself vertical the first few days is pretty tough to do, pretty painful. So I try to avoid that at all costs. The next thing I'll say is get yourself a grabber. This thing came in huge the first few days because it is very tough to get things from the ground or from far distances because you're not going to want to move again as much as you can. But this thing saved me a bunch of times. Getting shoes, you can literally, hey, all right, now I got this shoe, for instance. Putting on my pants or shorts was very helpful. This was very helpful in doing that. I was able to, set my pants up on the ground with my leg holes open so I could step into it, grab it, and then pull it straight up to where I could grab it with my hands and then be able to pull it up. You don't think about it pre-surgery, but you really are not going to be able to do much of anything as far as reaching down and grabbing things. So this thing came in huge. I will link this in the description. It's very cheap on Amazon. I want to say it was like 10 to 12 bucks, something like that. But very affordable and super, super helpful. The next thing I highly recommend is some sort of walker or walking assist device. I have just a walker itself. This thing came in huge, especially the first few days, because without this walker, I would have not been able to get up or get down or move around at all. This thing was basically a lifesaver for me. So the biggest thing for me, the toughest part was getting from a sitting position to where I was standing up with the being assisted by the walker. But what I have found is it's tough to kind of get yourself positioned to where you can push yourself up and stand under your own power. So what I would do is pull this as close as I could, get my hands here and lean over as far as I could to where my arms were taking the load and lifting my body, because you really can't erect yourself with your back muscles to try to stabilize yourself to push yourself up. So I would lean over far enough to where my arms took the entire load here, and then slowly push yourself until you're standing. And then once you're standing, it's just standard walker routine. Make sure you're supporting yourself, take little steps. Don't try to, pick it up and walk with it. Use the wheels, let it slide. And then same thing sitting down. I would get the walker as far back as possible to whatever I was sitting on, get my hands supported, almost support my weight entirely, and then slowly sit myself down until I was almost in like a dip position. And then you find your seat and then slowly sit yourself back. Again, this came in absolutely huge for me. I would say I used it for a week straight before I felt comfortable enough walking around without it. And that's the other thing you'll find is if you start walking around, you'll get tired quickly, and you don't want to get to a position where you're too far away from something to where you can't sit down or support yourself if you need to. So again, get a walker. You can find them on Amazon. Again, I'll link this also in the description. And then next, we're going to get a little weird and nasty here, but you're going to find going to the bathroom is tough. You're going to be on opioids, which have a history of giving you constipation, that kind of thing. But eventually you're going to have to go to the bathroom, and a lot of the time, I would say most houses, the toilet they're equipped with is fairly low to the ground, as was the case with mine. So I found that having a toilet or an elevated toilet seat helped a ton. Um, it's pretty simple. It's just a cage that holds a bucket. It's got a seat, and a lot of them come with liners if you feel like using a liner. The seat folds up and down, and then also comes with a bucket to remove the waste if you want to go that route. But also this bucket does remove, so you can set this over the top of the toilet and then be able to go directly into the toilet and not have to worry about the bucket or changing it out or you know, that kind of thing. So again, this came in huge. When I was having trouble going to the bathroom, because sitting down to the toilet was excruciating in the first few days. But this did come in huge. You can find them again on Amazon. I believe Walmart carries them. You know, most of the major retailers will carry something similar to this. But again, this came in huge. Um, and while we're on the subject of going to the bathroom, before your surgery, I highly, highly, highly recommend taking some form of a stool softener. Again, the opioids are going to make you extremely constipated. If you've never taken them before, I mean, I literally think I went a week and a day without having a bowel movement. And as I'm sure you can imagine, it gets pretty uncomfortable. But I started taking just a standard over-the-counter stool softener a couple days before surgery, and then continued on post-surgery as long as I was taking the opioids, and it seemed to help a lot. If you get to the point where you still are having trouble with bowel movements, you can move to like a stimulant laxative. I found at the week mark, when I still hadn't had a bowel movement, I started, you know, saying, all right, we got to make something happen. So I started using a stimulant laxative. And if that doesn't get things rolling, you can then go to like a suppository. That should at least give you some kind of relief. And then worst case scenario, if you can't get things working that way, you can do an enema. But again, it's just kind of is what it is. It's the nature of the beast. So the best thing to do is to be prepared for that before you have the surgery, because you don't want to be scrambling trying to find stool softeners or laxatives or that kind of thing after your surgery. So again, those are some tips that I highly recommend. Oh, last thing, get yourself some comfortable sandals. These I got on Amazon. Again, I'll link in the description. I believe these were $15, somewhere around there, extremely cheap. And I kid you not, these are the most comfortable sandals that I have ever had, period. Hands down. I still wear them to this day, as you can see. The cushion in them is amazing. I noticed that if I was walking barefoot, it seemed to irritate my back a little bit more than when I was walking around in these. Could it be a placebo effect? Sure. I don't think it is. I really think the cushion of these things really helped take that impact off of my back. But again, these are super cheap. I mean, they're not the prettiest things, but they get the job done and they are super comfortable. So I'll link the description for these. And again, it's something simple, but it does make a heck of a difference when you're in pain. You want to try to alleviate as many variables as possible when you're in pain, so you can focus on yourself and focus on your healing process. So I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have in the comments. If you have any questions, concerns, or any other recommendations for anybody else that has had this surgery, I'm happy to hear them, happy to answer questions, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.